Bonjour tout le monde. I can see your French is improving. It's nice. And yes, I'm going to make the same joke every time I'm on stage. All right. Right, so I'm a bit on the sides. So, welcome everyone. So, welcome to this vital panel discussion titled AI at the Crossroads. Can innovation and ethics coexist? Today we find ourselves navigating a complex and rapidly evolving landscape where the promise of artificial intelligence collides with pressing ethical dilemmas. Recent events such as the AI Action Summit in Paris have underscored a significant shift in policy focus. From a cautionary approach centered on AI safety to one that prioritizes innovation and national self-interest. As global leaders grapple with the implications of AI, the Trump administration's pressure on Europe to abandon stringent AI regulations illustrate the geopolitical stakes involved. Meanwhile, emerging trends point towards a future dominated by agentic AI, systems capable of making autonomous decisions, which raises fundamental questions about accountability and governance. As we delve into this critical conversation, we must confront whether innovation can truly flourish without sacrificing the ethical standards that are essential to keeping our society safe from the very technologies we create. Will we prioritize progress at any cost, or can we forge a path that holds both innovation and ethics in equal measure? So to answer those questions, we have for you today three extremely sought-after experts. And Dr. Sarah Migliorini, Dr. Serge Stinkwich, and Stéphane Moussalier. I will ask at this stage the panelists to come on stage. Thank you very much for giving them a round of applause. All right, so let me introduce the speakers. So, Dr. Sarah Migliorini, Assistant Professor of Global Legal Studies at the University of Macau. She focuses on technology, law, and regulation. Widely published and cited by the EU Court of Justice, Sarah has advised the European Commission and held roles at leading academic and legal institutions across Europe. Sarah, welcome.
Thank you.
Dr. Serge Stinkwich, Head of Research at the United Nations University Institute in Macau, specializes in using AI, robotics, and IoT to tackle sustainable development challenges in the global south. With experience leading projects across Africa and Asia, he has taught in France and Vietnam. He collaborated with global institutions and supervised over 20 postgraduate students. Serge, welcome.
Thank you.
Last but not least, Stéphane Moussalier, founder and CEO of System in Motion. A Shanghai-based expert in AI-driven strategy and technology consulting, a prominent figure in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, he mentors startups, co-founded La French Tech Shanghai, and focuses on generative AI, making him a sought-after speaker and advisor. Stéphane, welcome.
Obrigado.
All right, let's get to it. So first question. So I'd like you to tell me, how can business balance the drive for innovation in AI with the need to uphold ethical standard and societal well-being? Who wants to take the first one?
So, as the entrepreneur, of course, I have a bias towards the innovation side, and I'm pushing my own team, my own company, customers, leads, and everybody we meet to go and try AI. Go and try AI in a safe way, meaning that make sure nothing bad happens. Test and learn. This is what entrepreneurs do. We like to break things. And on the ethical side, I have a very simple recommendation: don't do anything stupid. Make sure you still have common sense. Use critical thinking. But we have at our disposal amazing technology that didn't exist just 20 months ago. And it would really be a shame not to try it and figure out all together, because we are all learning together. I'm an expert. I have this status of AI experts, but I'm still learning every day new things and discovering new ways of doing it. So go, try, don't do anything stupid, and figure out the best way you can use technology to do.
All right, so adapt, but with the right skills. All right, anyone else wants to take up?
Yes, so I would agree with that, and I think that, yeah, so I think that all of us actually, not just companies, we are in a moment where we have to engage with this technology. I use it every day in my work, but at the same time, I tend not to think of AI as one thing. It's many, many different things, many different applications that can be applied to many different problems in real life. And so I would advise anyone, and companies in particular, to start from something that they think could have value, and do it first internally, and test it, and train the people, and then it can become public-facing with all the problems that may arise with legal issues, from privacy to liability to many others. So that would be my...
All right, so we tend to agree here. So accept it, discover, and get trained, get the right skills, right? Serge, do you have another take on this?
Yeah, maybe a little bit different because I'm coming from the UN, so United Nations, and so there's always this fear that regulations, ethics will impact innovation, but I think it's not the case. Actually, it will maybe help innovation to grow at the end. So, and maybe because I think this is also very important to come up with very precise case. I just want to maybe illustrate with one specific case I found yesterday, quite interesting. So it's about data set, because you know that most of the AI system, they are trained on data sets, and we are not talking that much about data sets, but they are very important, maybe more important than the algorithm at the end. So there's this data set called Lion 5B, which was been introduced by a German company in March 2022, and this is a company who developed datasets and tools, and this dataset contains, so it's open source, so everyone can download it. It contains 5.8 billions of images, so it's very important datasets that is used for image generation, and it has been used for probably you know this tool, Stable Diffusion, where you can generate image from text. So they use this dataset to build these systems. And in 2023, a photographer discovered that some of his images were inside this dataset. So there was kinds of dispute between this company, this organization, and this photographer. And also another artist discovered that some of her pictures or private medical records are inside this dataset. So you see that there is a lot of issues with the ethical issues, privacy, and more recently, some people also discovered in the same datasets that there are something like 1,000 child sexual abuse materials. So it's even more concerning. So you see that it's very concerning in terms of the ethical use of this kind of data sets. So there's not that much. We talk about AI maybe sometimes very broadly, very high level, but I think we should also pinpoint this kind of.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for seeing the other side of it. So, well, continuing on that, what do you think are the biggest blind spots in AI ethics today? And who should be accountable for them? You've just talked about a few issues. So who do we point? Where do we point the finger, and how do we address these issues?
Yeah. So I will not talk about the new trends of maybe Stefan can talk about that, about the agents that are coming. So the idea that we will have more autonomous systems that allows us to do lots of interesting things. And I think. When we discuss about ethics, sometimes I think it's always interesting. This is my academic background. I like to come back to the definition. So you know that ethics is the study of principles that are related to right and good conduct. So it's something that so it's close to philosophy actually, and we have to think about ethics in a very contextual way. There is no way to do it right or wrong, because it really depends on the culture, the region, So there is no, and you can have a look to this very interesting website called Neural Machines. I don't know if you know about that, where you can play the role of an autonomous car, and you have to decide. So you have multiple scenarios where you have to decide. For example, should I? I have no more brakes. So should I decide about killing myself, so going off of the road, or killing some kids on the road? So you have to take decisions like that, and you can compare. So you have multiple scenarios where you can kill the various populations of people and animals, and at the end you can see that your answers are maybe so they are linked to your ethical point of view, and maybe are not shared with, among the people, because depending on the region, depending on your gender, maybe you might have very different opinions on ethics. So just to say that we are talking about what are the biggest spots on ethics, but we have first to consider what is ethics, because it's something very contextual and very difficult to define.
So hearing from you, it sounds that the path to ethical AI goes through actually educating the people who use AI to understand it better. All right. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, actually on the car, but not the autonomous car. It's a great analogy or comparison to look back in the history of car and car safety. At the beginning of the car industry, if you had an accident, that was your fault, 100%. So it's the driver's fault. If you drive your car off the road, and that's it, that's your fault. And then slowly the industry understood, or the society understood, that the car manufacturer had to do something about it. And then we evolved into car safety, and then we evolved into third-party testing, into regulation that a car needs to have a safety belt, need to have airbag, and then there are technology. So that part of the responsibility of the safety shifted from the driver back to the industry. And today with AI, there's zero liability in most jurisdictions. I think I took under your control. There's zero liability towards the AI companies. Except in China. So China has taken the lead on this one. So the idea is probably part of that responsibility, that if you do something stupid with AI, it's 100% your fault. Part of that has to go back to the AI models, and the regulation will come and decide what the model should do and what the model shouldn't do. And then there will be a need for a third-party company to evaluate that. Because today, AI safety is totally discretionary and under the responsibility of the AI companies. So for example, OpenAI, they have their own team, and they decided to shrink the budget on AI safety. Nobody will tell them anything. When they release, I think it was O1, they actually lower the bar under their own accord, and they release it at a lower safety than their previous models. And I think it was not a coincidence that they were in fundraising, and they announced 2 weeks later closing their next round of funding. So that's on this one, there is absolutely a need for something to come up with.
So learn, test, and regulate, if I understand what. Okay, Sarah.
Yeah, so on this one, I would have a more nuanced approach. I think that though some of the issues that AI might raise in the future are new, we do have rules in the legal system to address tort liability, manufacturer's liability. So those rules are there, and they will be applied by courts. So if something bad happens, courts will have all the rules that they need to just try and assign liability. Whether they will do it in a way that makes sense, that's another issue. And it will be for the regulator to kind of guide with safeguards and standards, and even through private standards. So many technologies are just regulated because institutes like ISO and others, they just put out technical norms. So that layer is still lacking in many jurisdictions. The EU has tried something, but at the moment the details are not ironed out yet. So we cannot say that. But I would also like to, I know I said I would speak about the law, but I would like to go back to the ethics and have a different approach to the trolley problem. So the problem of there's an autonomous vehicle. Should we tell the autonomous vehicle to kill the cat or the kid or the elderly person or the kid? I think that this is a little bit an impossible decision to make, not because we all we all disagree about what is ethics, but because when we do drive a car, we take that decision in the moment. It's a system one decision. No one really knows. I can tell you I would do that, but I don't know exactly if I find myself in that moment, what I would do. Maybe I would just save myself, and all ethics just go out of the window. So really, I don't know. So it's very hard, like at a stage where we are planning, how to design this technology, to embed a rule that no one really has power to decide. So I do think about this issue in particular, that we just need to design roads differently. The same way that we designed roads differently when we shifted from horses to cars, cities changed. The same way we should change cities and the layout of the city so that autonomous vehicles can actually work and be safe. And try to do what companies are doing now to make an autonomous vehicle safe on a road that was thought for normal cars. It's a little bit of a difficult problem.
So would you mean like something like Hong Kong, where the pedestrian and the vehicles are separated, and roads, smart roads maybe, that has a level of control in cars?
Yeah, why not? I mean, Hong Kong, it's a difficult example because there's not much space. But there are cities in Germany that really changed their layout when cars came along. There are pictures about that. And so I think we should go towards that.
All right, interesting. So you were talking about cultural background and country background, but what about sectors? So my next question is like, which industries are undergoing the biggest transformation, disruptive transformation in terms of AI, and what are the ethic dilemmas and implications?
I think all the sectors are impacted at the end, so it's very difficult to find sectors that there's no impact at all. So maybe I can talk a little bit about the education, because this is the sector I know best, in academia, and we have seen lots of, and even before the teachers have learned about that, the students have embraced all these tools and they are using them now every day. So it's a real concern, because they can for sure maybe be very productive and answer lots of questions and do their exam more easily. But at the end, we don't know exactly, because there might be also an impact, especially on the youth. There might be an impact on the way they are thinking, they are developing the mind and the reasoning. So it's also very concerning. And for me, the solution in that specific sector of education is that the teachers should also embrace the tools and educate the young people about the safe use of these kind of tools, because and this is what I'm trying to do every time I'm teaching in front of students, is that I try to explain, even if the students are not from computer science, I try to explain them how it works behind the black box, because it's very, actually the tools that we are using, these kind of large language models, are very simple to understand. It's just that most of the time the companies don't give us the details, but so I think education is very important, and yeah.
To rejoin, to link with what Stefan was saying, it's so simple that it's easy to do something stupid with them, isn't it? So yeah, but you talk about the academia sector. I think there's a real war of AI tools in academia. For example, when interviewing students, I know that there are interviews where students actually have an AI model on the side of the screen where they can actually answer, so that the AI model listens to the question and they can read the answers and speak. And then on the other side, there are AI models that actually analyzes the eyes of the interviewee to see if he's actually looking at the camera or reading something on the side. So yeah, it's a war of AI models, right? But did you guys have anything else to add on the specific industry disruption?
Well, on education, because that's what I do for a living. We are in a very difficult time at university. We don't know exactly how first to teach students to use this. Second, how to motivate students to actually study, because actually ChatGPT can answer the questions that I might put out for them much better and much faster. And also, we have a problem in having other colleagues engage, because my colleague, Professor Sidious here, she's also into this, but my other colleagues have no interest in learning this tool.
So it's two sides of the spectrum. So on one side you have overuse and maybe a dangerous use, which is kind of detrimental to the student because he's not using it. On the other side you have like the old guard, the professors who are a bit reluctant to use it because they don't understand it too much.
Yeah, and also because it puts really, especially in the legal field, everything that we do really into perspective, because we don't work with data, we don't go out in the field. It's really very, very normative what we do, and we find these machines that produce knowledge that, at least on the surface, looks a lot like what I could do, but they do it in a second and it will take me 1 month. So what I try to tell students is that these tools actually are good for them in the sense that if they go out into the world and they know how they use them, they can have an assistant themselves when they join the law firm and kind of have a work that is a little bit more higher level. So checking what the machine gives them, and just use the machine to draft better and faster without having to do it themselves. But we are in a transitional phase, and I'm not quite sure where this is
Maybe
going.
it's a good time also for the education sector to be more multidisciplinary, so work with different disciplines together, because because most of the questions are related to the complexity of the world. So it's not if I'm teaching computer science, this is interesting, but this is computer science applied to some specific questions. So it's important, I think, to maybe rely more on multidisciplinarity now to try to tackle some of these issues with this kind of AI system.
Stefan, do you have a take on disruption, specific industry?
Yes.
dilemmas?
So I mean, every industry, as long as it manipulates what we call unstructured data, so text, documents, there's a potential for gain and productivity gain. Problem is there were promises, very large consulting company, I won't name names because maybe some are in the room, they promised 30% productivity gain, and that was not the case. And from the entrepreneurial side, I think it was Sam Altman promised a $1 billion company with only 1 employee and all AI, and it didn't happen either. Actually, there was a research that was published a couple of days ago. He put some AI agents to create a company, work together, and I think they bankrupted in 20 seconds. It just didn't work, and it's not working, and it's actually good news. So there is no big, and believe me, I'm looking, there is no big success story that is out there that this company completely transformed itself with AI. So everybody's kind of trying to figure out what to do and where to go. And I strongly believe with my team, and that's what we're pushing, that it has to be mainly bottom up. It has to come from the employees. It has to come from finding inside companies AI champions, give them the tools, activate. Because again, as I said earlier, we're all learning together. It's a black box, so as Serge said, you can explain a little bit the basic principle, but nobody can explain why the AI is giving this answer, why there's like creativity coming out, why this picture is coming this way. There's no explainability. So it's really test and learn. So it has to be people from every department in the company. They need to embrace AI, figure it out, and then help the other employees to go around, figure out the best use case, and from then we can build projects. Because the older generation of AI, they always face rejection from the users, because AI used to come and say, oh, AI is better than you. AI is more efficient than you in predictive analytics, in this and that. And it was always the AI against human. But if we bring AI, as Sarah said, as an assistant, AI will be here to help you a little bit at the beginning. Then people in the company will really embrace it, and as well as in academia, and little by little they will raise the bar. But of course, it's not going to be 30% productivity gain in 2 months. That's unrealistic. But the investment will take a little bit more time. But at the end, the payback will be way bigger.
All right, thank you. So I'd like to come back to something we heard a lot of. There are regulations, but we don't know yet. We're not too sure. So I'd like to talk about transparency. I think it's a big part of what we're doing now in AI. So AI systems are becoming more autonomous, And so I'd like to understand from you your take on how do we ensure transparency? How do we ensure what is the process actually to assign accountability when something goes wrong?
I think the first layer of transparency, if you use AI, disclose it. Don't put in place an AI system that pretends to be a human, especially not in front of a customer, right? So if you use AI, be transparent about it. The first transparency is this one. If it's a chatbot, the chatbot should say, "Hi, I'm an AI assistant," and that's. And there were tests with and without. Everybody who put an AI or pretend to be human failed, and that was a disaster. So I don't have a lot of success case, but I have a lot of failure cases that are public, that are massive. So that's the first layer at the company level, and then again the system itself, there's no transparency. It's completely a black box. So the accountability has to go back to a human. You know? So if you send an email that was generated by AI and your customer is unhappy about you, it's not an excuse. Air Canada actually tried. Air Canada had a case a year and a half ago. They say, it's not our fault, it's the AI. No, it's your fault, it's on your website. You put that technology, you gave the wrong answer to the customer, the company is liable, and then probably somebody internally is liable as well. So liability will go back to humans, which means you have to make sure how you use AI and how you use the product of the AI, how you use the output under your own responsibility. So you're still in a hierarchy, and you still have that accountability as a human.
Serge, you.
Yeah, when we discuss about transparency, I think that there are many issues. We all know that AI, especially the I don't like to say AI because there's so many different kinds of AI, symbolic AI, so neuron-based AI. So it's I would say current state of AI based on deep learning and large language models. They are not transparent by definition because basically it's we train a systems and we have a system that is composed of billions of parameters when we have no idea about the role of these parameters in the productions of outputs. So it's so it's by definition that this kind of system are not transparent. But also the companies, the big companies that are producing these kind of systems are not transparent how they build the data set to train these kind of models. And for example, we have this case of OpenAI who I think journalists discovered that from the Time magazine discovered that actually the data set was created by people in Kenya, by a company in Kenya, and because they you know that these companies they want to avoid any bad material to train the system, so they asked this company in Kenya to look at a lots of images, very traumatic images, and the people of these companies, they have to follow some psychological sessions after that because they were a bit traumatized by having to deal with this kind of text and images. So we should ask these companies also to be more transparent in the creation of these data sets, not.
Yeah, this is scary. I mean, you used to have sweatshops to build sneakers, and now we have sweatshops to generate data. Wow, impressive. Sarah, I want to hear from you.
Yes, so about all of these issues. So first of all, yes, it's true that we don't have regulation specific to AI in many jurisdictions. But again, we live immersed in legal rules. We don't notice them, we forget about them, but we are in them. So the GDPR, so the European Data Protection Regulation, has been used to stop OpenAI, now DeepSeek, from operating in Italy and other jurisdictions in Europe. The anti-money laundering legislation has been applied to systems in banks that were not transparent about why they would block a certain transaction or not. So AI will be somehow regulated, especially if something goes wrong or someone starts legal action. You know, whether the system is ready and adapted, that's a different issue. But you know, there are fines and liabilities that are out there for courts to just assign and regulators to assign to companies. On the two other issues, so the case of Air Canada, so that the chatbot hallucinated and just made up a policy about a free ticket on a birthday or something like that. There wasn't company policy. So that's what, and then I speak under the control of Serge, but that's what technically we can call an hallucination. Basically, large language models hallucinate all the time in the sense that they don't know anything about what they're talking about, and sometimes they just make up stuff that doesn't correspond to what's out there in the world. So we have studied, actually together with Serge as well, this question from the legal perspective. Because when you have a product like AI, most of it is a product, it's a commercial product, either it is defective. So if it's defective, we go back to the manufacturer. Doesn't matter if there's shop in the middle that sell it to you consumer, but you can always sue the manufacturer. That's established. On the other hand, if the user, the consumer, does something stupid with AI, probably it's their responsibility, and the manufacturer just delivered a good product that was used in a way that it's not the right way. But in between, you have these cases of hallucinations that the system doesn't do what it is supposed to do from the perspective of the company, but from the perspective of the system, they are actually maximizing what they are asked to do. When they hallucinate, they just give you a reply that seems coherent, that's good enough. So we studied this issue, and we studied together. Then I also studied with an economist, and we have a paper that we hope will be published soon about the idea that the incentive in legal rules should be for companies to be more transparent. So if in court you can make a case that this actually was an hallucination, it's not a defect, it's just something that you couldn't predict at the moment, then you should be able to get out of liability. So we try to make based on game theory, that this should actually incentivize companies to invest in transparency, because the more transparent they are, the more they're shielded from liability, because they can explain that this is not what was supposed to do.
So that's very interesting. So that basically is putting the responsibility back on the consumer, and actually linking to what you were saying, Stéphane, which is like, well, if you say upfront that you are actually talking to an AI model, and do it at your own risk.
No, I mean you have the AI, you have the company, and then you have the consumer, right? You have three parties in that example. And the company still needs to make sure they put their best effort into making sure that the AI they are using fits a certain business problem and helping the user and creating value for the user. So in the case of Air Canada, that was an hallucination, but for me that was pure laziness. I mean, the way they put together the chatbot was just like sloppy, quickly. I don't know, the CEO's nephew did that or something like that, and they stitched it together, and they didn't really think what would happen. It's like just, it's magic, I just sprinkled some AI on stuff and I pray and it's going to work. I don't know if they pray. But so there is like a minimum amount of effort to understand the state of the art, having some IT people who understand what they are doing and what they're talking about. Because if we open the door to like, hey, it's unreliable, there are hallucinations, then okay, I don't have to invest too much, and I'm just going to cut my cost as a company, and I don't care about the quality at the end. I just put a disclaimer. So there was a case in a case in Europe. So when they went against OpenAI, there's a quote I really like. I put it in my newsletter. If you put a disclaimer that says that you're not liable, it doesn't remove you from legal actions just because you put it on a disclaimer. Yeah, you cannot break the law by saying, "Oh, we're breaking the law." Sorry, that's how the technology works. You have to be very careful not to go too much on the other side.
So, Sarah, do you think? Thank you very much. Do you think that the effort you are putting into increased transparency by removing liability can actually work with that? What's your reaction to this?
Yeah, so the idea is just about those cases that are unpredictable. It's not a defect, and it's not a mistake of the user. It's that area in between that doesn't exist with a toaster, because the toaster is not going to start making crêpe like all of a sudden.
Really?
Usually they don't. They just do what they're asked to do over and over. And so for that area, that even if you build AI with all the best science at the moment, they still could happen down the line. But if you can prove that you are in that particular gray area, then you are exempt of liability. That incentivizes companies to invest in transparency. And if it's not possible for certain technology to make them fully transparent in that way that you can make a case in court, then they shouldn't invest in them. They should just go for the things that are more transparent.
That sounds very complex and peculiar, and I guess a lot of more work for the lawyers. So, you know, you guys still have work to do. Serge, what's your take on that? Do you have anything to add?
I think it's when we are talking about AI, we talk about transparency, there is also accountability. There are lots of risks, so we have to be aware of that. And we discussed a lot about the ethical risk, but coming from the UN, we have also to think about sustainability issues. And so I think when we want to assess all this AI system, we have also to have a more holistic view on that. So we're not talking about just ethical point of view, but also what are the impact of these systems on the, for example, on the environment? So, because we know that they are using a lot of energy, and so they produce a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. So it's important also not to forget about these very important sustainability issues.
Okay, thank you very much. So we talked a lot about transparency, accountability, ethics, and everything. So I'd like to take it more, because a lot of us here are actually business people. There be people who are trying to stay in this, actually stay with current, like with, I was going to say ahead of time, but no, actually it's like with the time. So if you're in companies, so what are the risks of letting AI usage grow within your company? How should leaders and policymakers prepare for using AI and the social implication, social and ethical implication of that for the next 5 to 10 years? So how do you prepare for that as a business person?
Maybe I'll take this one first. So the first risk is if a company doesn't invest in AI, the employees are going to take it in their own hands. So they have it on their phones, on their laptops. They will maybe use a free version of AI, and that will generate, for sure, data leakage. So some of your company information, some of your customer information, supplier price, financial information, something will get out, will leave your company, go to a server somewhere, probably in the US, so leave Macau as well. So you're at risk of data leakage, and you may have invested a lot of money to protect this data. With AI, it's what a lot of people in the industry call shadow AI. If you don't give AI tools to your employees, you just give them pressure to be more productive, you have that risk of data leakage. And also, if there's no education, so they don't know what's an hallucination, they don't understand the risk, they may copy and paste something from the AI very quickly and send something stupid to a customer, and then you may fire them, but the customer may also fire you. So the two risks are not having enough critical sense of what the AI is giving you back, and having data leaving your company. I think which are two pretty significant risks so far.
Yeah, very good. I like that you put a name on it, shadow AI. There was a McKinsey study saying that there was 3 times more shadow AI happening in companies that the leaders of this company was aware of. So there was like a massive gap between what people thought their employees were doing and what their employees were actually doing. So yeah. Any take on how to tackle that problem from within a company?
Get a good lawyer.
You can go lawyer.
Yeah. No, I think, as I mentioned before, we need to, I like technology and I use it, but it has to be done within a time frame that we can manage it. And so tested it first, and especially very sensitive areas like HR, employment, health of employees. There are so many sensitive things that need to be thought through before you implement. And maybe not every type of AI is good for every company. There should be some kind of choice at that level. So
should we have an ISO model, like where if you show that you have gone through the steps that are widely accepted, this reduces your liability, or this makes you a better user of AI?
Yes, so that is a possibility. That is a possibility. Whether the regulators will take it into account for real now, we cannot say, because we really don't know where regulation is going, but it's a step. It's a step that I would think would
Okay,
be.
thank you. Serge?
I want to maybe have a different perspective coming from the UN also, and I've been working with lots of countries from the Global South, and I've been spent before arriving in Macau. I spent 2.5 years in Cameroon in Central Africa, and there's a lot of issues related to the access to the internet. So the people are not talking about AI, just accessing to the internet is already difficult. But still, they are interested to develop, and they heard about when I was in Paris for the AI summit. I met lots of friends coming from Senegal and Cameroon, and they were because they are very interested how they can use this kind of technology in their own countries. And so, for these companies in these countries, it's very important to have access to compute facilities because they don't have the knowledge or the capacity, the resources to have access to this kind of large-scale infrastructure, and they don't want to because most of the LLMs right now are based on English or Chinese or French corpuses, but not that much on the local languages, for example, in Africa. So it's very also important to develop that part, and so we have to think about new kinds of models for these companies that are in the global south. So it's about having access maybe to local resources. So small large language models that are running on local infrastructure without accessing the internet. So we have to completely change our mind in that very specific perspective.
Thank you very much. So AI is changing rapidly. So what kind of strategies do you think a company can put in place in order to leverage AI and actually keep up with it? Because it seems that there's a new model every week. How do we do? We have work to do, right? Yeah, thank you.
It's more like every day, but yes, it's changing rapidly, and it's important to separate the need of the AI industry itself, because that whole craze about that new model, like 92%, 93%, 93.5%. So it's a race between the AI companies and the tech media, and some of the business media is really pushing this info forward. But you don't need to care about this one. You don't need to look too much into the AI industry. It's their own internal race for who's going to be the king of AI. But the great thing is they invest a lot of money into it. And then what is important is what you're going to do with it. So where are the fruits of how you can benefit from all the money they're investing into giving you that. So there is something in the industry that are benchmarks. So benchmark are like a kind of third-party small pieces of software that will compare the AI with each other. And this is what the industry cares about. Like, oh, my model is better than your model. No, her model is better than my model. But you don't care. You don't care for two reasons, because the most important thing company cares are ROI. So it's the performance divided by the cost. And when you flip that chart and you look at performance divided by cost, the king is not at all the same one. And this is the one you need to look at. And for the last 3 or 4 weeks, part of the industry has turned into making the model smaller, cheaper, which means that in terms of sustainability, that's also a good thing. So you have to look at the cost, because you all want to embrace AI. I think most companies want to embrace AI. What is going to be the cost? And then what's going to be the ROI? So look for that performance cost ratio. And at the end of the day, if you have a model that gives you good results, you also don't care about the benchmark. And when we do training, and we see that in every company that we accompany, the ability to use the AI, do the right prompt, understand the business, and be smart about the way you use the AI is actually a way bigger contributor than the pure quality of the AI. You know, it's like you have Formula One here. It's not just a car; it's a car and a driver. You know, but with AI, I think the driver is even more important than in Formula One. The pure performance of the AI, you shouldn't care too much about it. That's their problem for their industry, the AI industry. They make a lot of noise. They have a lot of money for marketing and PR. Just ignore all of that. There are some changes. There are some important changes. So AI agents, they're a big step forward. But the small steps they are making every week just to be ahead of the competition, this is noise that try to ignore that noise.
So the same way you don't change employees every day, you don't change AI model every day.
You can change the AI model every day if you want, as long as you get good results across the board. But again, you have two reasons to change the AI model. It's slightly better, but it's not a good reason, or it's way cheaper and way better, lower impact on the environment. So this would be good reason to change.
All right, thank you. By the way, we don't have Formula One, we have Formula 4.
Sorry.
I wish we had Formula One. Any take on this?
Yeah, I think Stefan already addressed that, but I think the efficiency, the ratio between efficiency and the cost is very, very important. And most of the time we forget about it. And I'm inside the AI ecosystem, there is always this kind of thoughts about bigger is better, but it's not always the case actually. So we have to think about other kinds of models. And for companies, I think something interesting to have a look is the open source models. So the idea that we can reuse existing, because it takes a lot of resources to build these models. So instead of reinventing the wheel, we can maybe just copy paste an existing model. So download the systems and adapt the system to your own needs, and to build the capacity, internal capacity to understand this kind of system. So I think open source model, we have seen that with DeepSeek, but there is lots of open source models available. There is a new one, French new one called, done by Linagora, that will be out soon, called Lucy, that is completely not only open source but sustainable, because they try to think about where the data set is coming from, so try to avoid any IP issues. We see lots of these kind of models, and I think this is a real opportunity for companies who wants to not only use models, buy models from existing companies, but also build their own internal expertise about that.
I think so. So this is great, and it's. I mean, AI is so new. It's actually great that we already think about ESG and going into that direction so early in the process. Sarah, do you have anything to say?
Yes, I will I will do the bearer of bad news, but I would say there are risks that are very, very apparent to me right now for companies, but also for citizens, for any one of us. One is data. So we might actually, be a bit careless with the data that we upload to these models, and then that is a real issue. So the end of the spectrum is some law firms that have localized internally their servers, so they don't upload anything. They are. It's all in their own property, but these are big law firms that exist globally. They made that choice early on to invest. Maybe one does not have to go that far, but there has to be policies around that in a company. And the second risk that we are all exposed to is fraud, because AI is a good thing, but it's also very much used now for kind of frauds, that all the emails and text messages that we get, and they get more and more human-like. And stories in Hong Kong, for example, of people that have fallen for this, and maybe the fraud will be very, very small. They would just get a few $100 out of you, but because of this automation, you can do it with so many people that, yeah. And this is a real risk that, and I know companies have been targeted. Someone who uploads on LinkedIn, I have a new internship, and then they are contacted by someone that they pretend to be the CEO of that company, and so the stories are quite also because they involve new interns. But yeah, so I would look out for this too.
So you mentioned early on, so these law firm that invested early on. Do you think there is a risk of missing the train? Like it's going so fast. Are we? Is it already too late for some companies? Are companies bound to fall behind because they are not fast enough?
So, with respect to the legal field, I don't think so. We are usually quite conservative as a field, so I think there's plenty of time to catch up in a way. I just know about this firm because that's the space that I'm working on, and they did that in Germany, and they localized everything in Germany. But I think, yeah, we've still plenty of time.
I say again, don't confuse the speed of the AI industry and the speed of the rest of the humanity and rest of the companies. You know, again, I'm going back to the Formula 4, Formula 1 analogy. So the speed of the Formula 1 car and the innovation that is done, the technical innovation that is done in Formula 1 is really, really fast. But it takes years before it goes back to commercial cars, to Gran Turismo cars, right? So it's the same thing, like what they're doing there in China, US, and France in those AI labs, their speed, the goal for companies is not to match their speed. The goal for companies is to look around at competition, discuss maybe with your competitors or other industry, see how other companies are doing. And I always get the same, and it was the same thing with digital transformation. Every company I meet, they say, oh, we're so much behind. But if everybody is behind, then nobody's behind.
Sure, great, thank you very much. But I have more questions, but I'd like to give the opportunity to the audience to ask the questions. So if we could get some help with Mike. Any questions? You seem to have answered everything. Yeah, okay, we have a question here at the back. Oh, we have a question here. All right.
Thank you for your talk. It's very informative. So I have a question about intellectual property being used in data sets. That is, I think, when I heard the title Innovation and Ethics, my first thought was about intellectual property being used in data sets and being poached, perhaps. Can you perhaps talk about that, maybe? Any thoughts?
Ethical IP, so I don't know. I think it's an important issue, and we talk about AI systems without understanding that they are based on these gigantic data sets, and yeah, I don't know if I can say more than that.
Sarah, do you have something on IP?
Sarah, you can say more than this kind of IP issues.
I'm also not an expert in IP. I think, so there are issues at different levels. So there are issues related to scraping. So anything that is out there on the internet has been scraped much before AI. They started scraping, I don't know, in the early 2000s, maybe. And we have these archives that go back. So there's a lot of in those data sets that we don't even know that if they are copied on somewhere else, they might actually be considered an infringement of property rights in some jurisdictions. But in other jurisdictions like the European Union, for training, we have exceptions. So if you use that exception, you might be able to train on intellectual property, and that would be a use that is allowed. So the issue is very, very complex. There is also IP issue related to the output, right? We have AI now that is producing very interesting images, music that might infringe upon existing rights. So the IP issues are really countless. What we are seeing now, besides the regulation that already exists, are lawsuits in the US in particular from authors and authors of books or music, and also on the part of people that thought that their material has been used in training. And so we are seeing whether these lawsuits will kind of give us an answer under American law in particular, whether this is IP infringement. So this is the state of the art at this point, but maybe there's material for another talk.
On the flip side, there are companies that have tried to register an IP for AI-generated content, right? And I think US courts do not recognize AI generation as an IP, as subject to IP.
I think from a business point of view, what is missing is the ability for content author to sell the rights of their content to train models. Yeah. Because there's no, under the control of Sarah, because there's no legal framework for that. You can say that, for example, like Charles Dickens didn't sell the rights for movie. He didn't sell the movie rights. No, actually, no. Shakespeare didn't sell the movie rights to his play because the movie industry didn't exist. So he's like, he's stupid. He should have thought about selling the movie rights, but no, it didn't exist. So the same way, because there's no framework, there's no way, there's no support to say, oh, you want to use my data? Here, you need to pay me because OpenAI is making money thanks to having this big model. And partially because of using my content, and I have ownership of that content. But there's no legal framework. The same way Shakespeare couldn't sell the movie rights to his play because it doesn't exist. Once jurisdiction have figured out, okay, when you produce content, you have movie rights, you have book rights, you have training a model right, then how much you should pay me per, I don't know, per word or per something. Then pay the content provider, and then they can make a little bit of money, and there won't be lawsuits because now everybody's getting a share of the value because this content producer must be part of the value chain. Otherwise, the models are in trouble. So now they're fighting, but the resolution, the peacemaking resolution, is like just pay them something. And some of those lawsuits are ending up in paying. So I don't know where they are, OpenAI and New York Times. I think they're still in litigation. At the end, they just want to get a little bit of money for all the content because they've paid those journalists to write those articles. And OpenAI just took that and they're making money without paying them a share of what they own.
I like your analogies. They make it very easy to understand. Thank you. Serge, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, I want to add something. In fact, you can test if your private images, pictures has been used in datasets. So there is a website, have I been trained? So you can find it very easy on Google, and you can upload your personal image or some image that you want to check. And this system will test if this has been used in a data set. So you can check that. Yeah.
All right, thank you. There was another question?
Well, thank you very much for the many insights. We covered so many things. Just a bit confusion. There's some countries, they have more control over innovation. Other countries, maybe innovation goes before control. There is the EU AI Act. There's the USA AI bill. There's other countries that have regulations. I think Brazil, Korea, they all have their own regulations. So, but how does it actually work? So if there's a French company based in China using ChatGPT through a VPN, so if something goes wrong, who's going to catch them?
So you go to jail.
Sounds like a plot from Homeland.
So my first question is maybe, so the VPN use, is it actually illegal? Because it's not very clear. I'm not sure it's a good question for the panel, but I'd like to know.
So I'm not an expert so I'm not a lawyer, but I do live in China, so I know a bit about the regulation of there. So you have two VPN. In China, you have two types of VPN. You have official VPN and non-official VPN. So you can purchase a VPN from one of the telecom provider, and you have to fill in, you have to explain to the government why you need this VPN. So typical case, there are some global Google company who use Google Enterprise all around the world, but they have no way of running their business if they cannot access Google in China. Yeah. So they just explain what they need, and they purchase an official VPN from the telecom provider in China, and that's it. So if your company is using OpenAI as an internal tool, so for your employees, and you explain that without OpenAI you cannot run your business, you apply for official VPN, and then you get access to OpenAI. But that's for using the tool for your own employees to run your business. Now, when it comes to having an AI facing a Chinese citizen, so it's a B2C case, so you create a chatbot for a public chatbot via a mini program or anything else, and almost anybody in China on the internet with their cell phone can access that chatbot. If it's powered by generative AI, and it doesn't matter if it's text, video, music, image, all of them, they must be approved models that are registered with the, I think it's the Ministry of Telecommunication, with the Chinese one, and they need to be approved models. and the approved models are all Chinese for some reason. Nobody tried to file it there, But because it is a B2C case, and then you also need to submit your AI application, your algorithm, the training data, and everything to the Chinese government, and they need to say yeah or nay. And if they say no, then you cannot launch that B2C application. Yeah. And as a French company, you're submitted to the AI Act because your headquarters is listed in France, especially if you're a listed company, because your company is registered in Europe. Everything you do worldwide is also submitted to the AI Act. It becomes funny because the two regulations are not compatible, and now that's a lot of job for lawyers.
Anything to add on this?
Yeah, no, that was very comprehensive. No, I'm not very familiar with the details of Chinese regulation. I actually learned something. About the AI Act, it's true that it has a very wide extraterritorial scope, as the GDPR used to have, so maybe companies are already used to that because for data regulation, the European regulation is extraterritorial. But what we have seen, at least with the data regulation, is that enforcement, when it's extraterritorial, might be difficult. And so it is true that it applies, but if you're a French company, maybe you want to pay attention to that. But we know that many other companies that are established in third countries that are not members of the European Union and don't have a lot of business there, they are disregarding because, as you mentioned, these regulations are contradictory and you cannot be compliant with all of them. So yeah, I'll just say that.
Sergio, anything?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I saw the complex for me.
Thank you. There was another question, and this is going to be the last question because, yeah.
Hi everyone, a special thank you to the panel. Very interesting talk. I have a comment / question. So we all know that one of the downsides of the AI is cutting several jobs, right? But in terms of strategy for the small, medium-sized companies, having an example here, Macau, to be aligned with this kind of innovation makes sense at this time to create AI not only cut jobs, but also created new jobs like the prompt engineers and more, right? But it will make sense for small, medium enterprise in Macau to have a special department or like a AI manager, a small department just to tackle this kind of innovation, or still better to work with some outsourced consulting companies?
I think that's a question for you, Stefan.
So first, let me disagree with everything you said, and then I will answer your question. So AI doesn't replace jobs, AI performs tasks. And the job is more than a list of tasks, at least for most employees. So an AI will not replace a human, AI will make a human more productive. It's not killing jobs. And prompt engineering is not a job, it's a skill that we all should learn. The same way that I guess most of you are sending your own emails. You don't have somebody in the company that like, okay, I'm going to send all the emails for everybody in the company. You come to talk to me and I'll send you emails, and when there's a reply, I will come to you and show you the reply. I actually knew somebody in a French bank 30 years ago who was doing that with his assistant. That was a very rare case. So that was the disagreeing part. Should you have an AI department? I don't think so. The same way that email, that's why I always do the comparison with email, the same way that everybody manages their own email and send them, you should get that skill and see how AI can help you, because you're the best at what you do, so you're the best at deciding what the AI will do. I don't believe in being a consulting company coming and tell you, in your business, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this, and you should do AI like this, you should do AI like that. So this is why all the training and the programs that we run with a company, it's to empower people, it's to give them the understanding, the skills, so that they can go on their own journey, and everybody has to go on their own journey of understanding how AI can help them, and then grow into that, and finding what is the best way in this company to optimize this process with this AI, and figuring out together. Because we're helping hundreds of companies. I cannot be an expert in every single company. It will not be a good ROI if we have to send a consultant to immerse themselves for 1 year to understand what you guys are doing, because it took you 10 or 20 years to build that company or create that company.
I want to disagree a little bit. No, I would just say that it depends, the classic lawyer response. It depends what kind of company and how is the culture. Because, for example, in our department at the Faculty of Law, it's a relatively small department. And we need to engage with AI. And I think we would benefit from having 1 or 2 colleagues that on top of their normal job might actually be the ones that are driving this first trainings or, kind of knowledge for everybody about, these are the tools that are out there. You can use them by yourself in this way. And then maybe second layer, where the company is thinking about, providing this tool for everybody. And these are the uses. So I think it depends on the culture and the size and what is the end goal. It might be useful to not create a proper department, but designate someone to be the driver of this.
So people of reference, champions.
Yeah. Totally agree with my colleagues. Just want to add something on the fact that, for example, prompt engineering, this is something that was very trendy the last 2-3 years, but it's also becoming more and more. The machine cannot do that automatically now, so it's partly so you learn something. This is interesting, but I think it's also you have to revise this knowledge from time to time. It's maybe next year it will be completely fad. So so we have to think about that, and maybe there are new things to learn in the future.
All right. I'd like, ladies and gentlemen, to ask you for closing arguments, if you have any. And but I'm gonna help you a little bit, and I'm going to throw in a very philosophical question in your closing argument. So, after all, is AI good or bad for humanity?
I can try to start with the first one. I think there is no clear answer for the moment. I think it's very important to have an holistic view of the impact on AI on our society, on the environment. So it's very difficult to assess right now. Inside the UN, we are trying to understand this impact, so to understand if it's good or bad. There is the ITU, maybe you have heard about the ITUs, AI for social good. So it's but after that, what is social good? It's very difficult, because you might also think that I would use AI for doing everything, but at the end you forget about some impact, environmental impacts, or something like that. So you might consider first that it's a progress for the humanity, but if you are thinking a little bit more, and you see that this is not the case actually. So it's so what is at the end good is also be defined more clearly.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yes, I would build on Serge's argument that thinking of AI as AI is AI good or bad? It really kind of we are on the timeline and time frame of those companies that produce AI wants us to think that this is something different from anything we've known before. And I think, as Serge said, we need to start small, and we need to break it down. So what's AI in education and what's AI in legal education? That's my little niche, and I'm trying to understand that. And some of it is good, some of it is bad. It just depends how we use it. So I would not think of AI as AI, but I would just think of AI as this universe of different things that can be wonderful, but we just need to learn how to use it.
Thank you.
And I think the name of AI is also a little bit misleading, because if we replace AI, because actually this is just a statistical tool. So if we say, is it statistic, is it good or bad? So
depends on how you use it.
It's maybe a different answer.
It's a very, very important question and difficult question. I agree with that. But for me, it's a decision. We have, and the answer is obviously we have to make AI good for humanity. So we have to make, this morning we have to make that pledge. We are going to make AI good for humanity. And it has to be a conscious decision. So that means thinking about it, that means research, that means looking at what's happening around us. So the only thing we cannot do is let AI happen to you. You have to be active about it and not passive about it. Then we can all decide together, by a group of 100 by 100, we decide it's going to be good for humanity together.
Sarah, Serge, Stéphane, thank you very much for this wonderful conversation.